Hello, hello. My name is Nancy Mello, and I am the Creature Preacher. I'm an animal communicator, which means people come to me because they're looking for a lost pet, they want to resolve an issue with their current animal, if they have some emotional loose ends with an animal that's passed, or maybe an animal in their life is causing strife with a significant other or their child, or they just want to have a better understanding of animals as a whole. Here's how I work. All I need is a photo of the animal's eyes. You know how they say eyes are the window to the soul? Well, that's exactly how I work. I receive information directly from their eyes. That's how I hear them. And I don't know anything about them or their human before the reading starts. Listen, I don't BS. Period. End stop. I tell you what I hear, but hopefully in a loving and comforting way. I got into this work because I was at a low point in my life, and I realized that if I could help one person or one pet, then I had done my job, then I had served my purpose, and that's why I want to talk to you. On the show, I'm going to talk to people just like you, pet owners, animal lovers, and anyone trying to get in their animal's mind or curious about animals as a whole. And I'm going to tell you what your animal has been trying to say. So just as a reminder, I haven't met today's animal guest or person guest yet, but I think you should know something about them before we get started. So my producers spoke to them beforehand. I'm going to duck out for a second and let you listen. And when I come back, I'll do what I do, and you can come along.
I'm Joe Hollins. I'm a British veterinary surgeon, and for the past 12 years or so, I've been looking after Jonathan, the giant tortoise. He's about 191, approaching his third century, the oldest known living land animal in the world. I love Jonathan, that's the thing. He's a real gentleman of a tortoise. And he's something like 180 kilos, that's about 400 pounds. If you think that he was hatched in about 1832, he has seen empires come and go, kings and queens die, and obviously pandemics sweep through the nation, wars being fought and finished. But frankly, he's unaware of it all. Which must be quite nice, really, nirvana. Actually, when I arrived, he was in a pretty poor condition, nobody's fault, but tortoises are quasi-immortal. They wear out, and that's how they finally usually die. You see, he's blind with cataracts, lost his sense of smell, and one thing had led to another. His beak, we call it a beak, just like birds, was soft and crumbly, so he couldn't graze. So he was starving to death. Of course, what he was missing was vitamins, minerals, and trace elements. And his beak regrew. That's the incredible thing. So now he can graze. He put on weight, he became more active, and he even reacquired his libido for the female there, which at his age is pretty impressive. It's extraordinary. He recognizes my voice. And I can't pretend that it's reptilian love. But every time I approach him, I always speak to him in soft tones. And I'll say, Jonathan, 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 like that. And he jerks to attention and starts biting the air. I mean, that's how I know he recognizes me, because he's expecting food. And he knows that I will pass the food into his mouth. So I have a great affection for him. I think his affection for me is certainly around food. I wonder what goes through his mind, really. He's been there for so long. Do you know what goes through a tortoise's mind, particularly of such great age?
Hello, my name is Nancy, and you are?
Hello, Joe Hollins.
Nice to meet you, Joe. And where are you located in the world, Joe?
I'm a vet, and since 2009, I've been working mainly on St. Helena, but also Tristan da Cunha, which is the most isolated island settlement in the world, and the Falklands and Ascension Island. They're all British.
Where is St. Helena?
They're remnants of empire, to be honest, just these little fragments, these tiny islands in the South Atlantic. St. Helena is where Napoleon died because the British got fed up with him and exiled him the first time to Elba in the Mediterranean, which was a gentlemanly agreement because it's next to Corsica. And then when he raised another army and got defeated at Waterloo, we threw him onto St. Helena, the second most isolated island settlement in the world.
When you say it's isolated, how isolated are we talking?
Less isolated now, but till 5 years ago, we had to take a ship to Cape Town and then fly to the UK. And it was 6 days each way on the ship, plus another 2 days for flying. So it was 14 days travel.
So 6 days from St. Helena just to the mainland, to South Africa.
Cape Town, yes.
Who am I gonna be talking to for you today?
Jonathan the giant tortoise. I was the first permanent vet on St. Helena. They never had one. But I didn't realise what a responsibility it would be because he is the oldest known living land animal in the world. He's in the Guinness World Book of Records. And so when I first went, I assessed the welfare of Jonathan and I thought, well, he's just reaching the end of his life. He had cataracts.
And I wanted to talk to you about that because I had already picked up on his eyes. Something was off with his eyes. And he said hard to see and also blurry.
That's right.
But it's interesting. So you're a veterinarian, which I'm very excited about because I hear things and they don't make sense to me. So, and then I go, I don't know what this means, but I just hear it. So what he told me is that he can smell you. Do tortoises have a sense of smell that you know of?
Well, in truth, yes, they're meant to have a very good sense of smell and the other ones do, but he's lost his sense of smell.
But when you first worked with him, he had, because I see you doing this to him. I'm holding my finger up to my nose.
Yes.
Because I see him smelling your hand. So there was something left when you first met him. And his hearing is also, I like to say he's kind of like, yeah. And so I'm asking Jonathan very directly, I'm saying, do you know who this is? And he says, absolutely. He says, he's my friend. He's my friend.
Yes.
That's another thing he likes is when you get right in his face. I mean, you could almost be nose to nose. And he really likes it when you go nose to nose. You're not touching. And I feel like you're very respectful because he says you don't touch his nose. You're very respectful about not touching his nose. Like at least
that's correct.
Here.
He doesn't like that.
No.
He jerks backwards.
Was there another tortoise around him that left? He said there was another male that was around him, but in a different area that he saw on occasion.
There's another tortoise there, David.
I would say they don't really see eye to eye.
They don't, because David's aggressive. David's got all his faculties. He's got good eyesight. And so he's at the height of his male powers. And he really is a dominant, testosterone-driven tortoise. And he's humping the female all the time, quite frankly. Just to his own detriment. He found him upside down once, and I think he'd just fallen off the female. He is a mighty battering ram, a dangerous one, 200 kilos. Basically how they do it, too, is they don't just push forward and give them a bump. They pull their own heads in because they know they're going to use the front of the shell as a ram, and they rotate their enormously powerful legs very quickly. So you get this 200 kilo shell, this mass, bang, ramming into the other tortoise. It's really violent. But Jonathan doesn't have the ability to see the threat and to whip his head in. And he nearly crushed his neck, who was so close. It was such a near disaster.
Yeah, I wouldn't keep David anywhere near Jonathan.
It was definitely David because it was near the mud hole and you could see the tracks. And David was just looking on as the potential murderer. So, yep, you're right.
What can I do to help Jonathan? What would help you with your work with him?
I would love to have asked him about the old days, the former times, you know, the type of people that were around him, particularly when he could see. And, you know, St. Helena is such an interesting island because it was obviously very colonial. And he landed there after the abolition of slavery, thank goodness, but it was still under the auspices of the crown then, very military. He would have had a lot of visitors. I would love to have asked him about those times.
When I ask him about that time period, I get a lot of sounds and I just hear a lot of people yelling. He says it was very loud all of the time. And forgive me if this is a little bit alarming, or you can tell me to stop at any time, but he did say...
No, go for it. Yeah.
There were ropes. There were ropes, and something about he was tied up or he was caught. And I'm not sure if this was purposeful or unpurposeful. I do feel like there is some human abuses. I see ropes around his neck. I see ropes around his body. There were also things thrown at him.
Interesting.
And I see him at one time in a pen, or there was no movement for him. And it's almost like, I don't know if they had like tortoise races. And I know this sounds kind of crazy, but you're talking to an animal communicator, so welcome to the show. But it's almost like I see like people kind of throwing stuff.
That's quite possible.
And very much teasing him. And and I keep hearing from him, Jonathan, he says they thought I was stupid. They thought I was stupid. They thought I didn't understand it. And so they would yell at him. And I wonder if they were doing it to say, get out of the way. That might be it. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. And they were throwing stuff because they couldn't lift this guy.
I think you're right, because he was landed in 1882 fully grown, which means at least 50 years of age. So he's had a life, almost a full human life in length over in the Seychelles. So it was the main shipping route as well. There was no Suez Canal, of course. Now, as you probably know, the tortoises were harvested for meat. So the reason they were often given as diplomatic gifts is they happened to be on board. So he would have been wrestled aboard ship, probably roped, and hauled aboard because, fully grown, he's 180 kilos. What's that? So he's almost 400 pounds in weight, you see. So he would have been roped for sure. And they can march and walk very fast. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if they somehow hobbled them with ropes as well to stop them walking. I think you're right. Probably who knows what they did to him.
And he would have been on board, and that would make sense where he's hearing lots of people jeering at him and yelling at him, and also the feeling of him being trapped.
Completely. Yeah, he wouldn't be able to move at all. He was probably with others. He was probably stacked in a hold, literally. Really horrible when you think about it.
But the wonderful thing is about Jonathan is I do feel like he has a sense of humor.
Yes, me too.
And he also says there's a woman with blonde or silver hair that stays on island with him, that takes care of him, that he really likes as well. And she's very kind to him, and she really respects his space. She's very good. Yes. So you recognize this woman? Absolutely. Teeny Lucy, my good friend and ex-partner, and I trained her how to feed him, So she's brilliant. I trust her completely with him. He's funny. He says he doesn't like when people have a lot of hair by their shoulders. He says he doesn't like it, and I think it's something to do with the sound, how the hair kind of swishes, because he was talking about your coworker that has the ponytail, and he really likes her. But something about the hair down, he says he doesn't like that at all. No. I don't like when people are like that. I wonder. People with long hair, which I don't have, are sometimes not aware where it's going in the breeze as well. And he's very sensitive around the eyes, and as you rightly said, he doesn't like being tapped or touched here. So I wonder if, strands of hair touch him and waft across him, and it would alarm him, definitely. Yeah, he doesn't like that. Well, and I'm wondering if that has something to do with historical context, too. Sailors, did they traditionally have longer hair? They did. Could we assume that these sailors who brought them up had longer hair and maybe longer facial hair, and that was also touching him? They commonly had pigtails. So that would also check why he didn't like the long hair. If people that had abused him had that longer hair, why he wouldn't care for it. Well, you're right. I think, literally the giant tortoises were treated as meat lockers. It's encased fresh meat, it kept fresh, stash them in the hold, and eat them over, because the sailors were used to eating salt pork and with maggots and ship's biscuits with weevils. And so Jonathan would have been loaded up like a carton of meat, stashed in the hold along with his mates, secured so they couldn't wriggle around and particularly move in the rough seas. And then probably because he was a full-size one, gifted as a diplomatic gift when the ship called in at St. Helena, which nearly all the ships did. It was the only place to call into to reprovision ships. So you're right. I think, he would have had a traumatic start to his life. He's lived so long.
After the break, more with Joe and Jonathan the tortoise. I'm asking Jonathan what he saw in the past on the island, and in his usual sense of humor, he says, I saw a lot of feet.
That would be right, though. You know, they were allowed to roam free at that time because I say there were no cars, just mules and donkeys on the road. And they used to wander quite widely, actually, apparently. So, everybody was walking. The mules and donkeys were really for taking stuff down to market. Everybody was walking.
And no shoes. I don't see a lot of buckles. I see
no shoes.
I see feet.
No shoes. Absolutely. Even talking to the old saints, they're called saints, the islanders. The old saints who were 70 or 80, they would get, no, we didn't wear shoes except for special days and like going to church. Shoes were valuable and expensive. They would not wear them out for everyday stuff. They had bare feet, calloused and hard like old leather. Quite extraordinary.
But he also says that I see him being, again, a little mischievous, and he would take fruit. He's showing me there would be fruit at kind of the base of trees, and he would grab it. He would grab it.
You don't know how right you are, because I heard a really lovely story from an old gardener who used to work at plantation. When they roamed free, Jonathan did have a good sense of smell. You're quite right. He could smell of what they call the windfalls in the orchard just above plantation at Bishop's Holm, where the bishop lives. We have a bishop. And he would go up there and eat the windfall pears and apples. Anyway, the bishop would complain, and the gardeners would be sent up there with bamboo poles, because it was the only way to get Jonathan to come back, to lever him in the right direction down the road back to plantation. So yeah, he'd go raiding the orchard. Absolutely spot on.
That was one of his favorite memories.
I bet he gorged.
This is proving that he has these memories.
I know. I think people underestimate their, I don't know if you can call it intelligence, but their knowledge and understanding of things. Because he definitely knows my voice. There's no doubt about it. I even shot the vet who replaced me, was shocked to see how well he reacted to me just saying, Jonathan, Jonathan, jerking to attention, walking forward and then biting the air for the food because he can't see. And he doesn't respond to other people the same way.
It doesn't matter if you are a cat, a dog, a whale. They have conscious thought. They have memories. They can feel pain. They can feel joy, at least from my experience as an animal communicator. But they can also feel sad. They can feel loss. Yes,
yeah. I believe you. Absolutely. They're sentient. People argue about sentience in animals, and I've got, there's no argument with me. They're sentient.
I appreciate you as a veterinarian being able to have an open mind about this. And I'm curious what your viewpoint of what I do is from your scientific base. What do you think about that?
It's a good question, because I think, I know vets that don't have much empathy with animals. They probably shouldn't be vets, and they miss so much. And I think if you do have good empathy with animals, you not only are a better diagnostician, but they respond to you, because I think particularly when you're dealing with very sensitive animals like dogs that are truly domesticated and fit into human life, they have a sixth sense. They read our body language, our smells, our little tics, and they can almost see into our minds when we don't even know what we're thinking and how we're feeling. And I think you probably do that you have a tremendous empathy with animals, and you have that sixth sense that allows you to see further into animals than the average human being can, certainly. And you make a great vet, wouldn't you? You really would.
When I say it's been an honor to speak with you and Jonathan, it's such an understatement. And thank you so much for taking time out of your day to speak with me. I truly will never forget this.
Really interesting, fascinating stuff, and all the power to your elbow, as they say. So thank you very much.
All the best to you.
Take care. Cheers. Bye. So she's obviously got that bond with animals which lets us see deeper inside. He would have been hauled on board, crated probably, and then stacked. And then again, interestingly, there was this horrible roping device they had at plantation in my time, which I banned immediately. Just terrible, really. They weren't treating the tortoises as important zoological specimens, but it wasn't their fault. It was ignorance in the true meaning of the word, just an uneducated approach to the animals. I like her, though. I do think she's got an ability, definitely. I suppose I wanted to see how accurate she could be, but also I find these things fun as well and educational for me. If you don't do it, you don't really know what it's about, so how can you have an opinion?
If you want to learn more about Joe's life as a veterinarian on St. Helena and his friendship with Jonathan the giant tortoise, check out Joe's memoir, Vet at the End of the Earth: Adventures with Animals in the South Atlantic. Creature Preacher with Nancy Mello is produced by Rococo Punch. Our producers are Catherine Fenalosa, Emily Foreman, and Andrea Aswahe, with help from James Trout. Social video by Lauren Wyan. For more details on the series, go to creaturepreacherpod.com. You can reach out via email too. Podcast me at rococopunch.com. The show was launched with the help of some of the best in the business, and it wouldn't have happened without them. Thanks to Christine Ricasa, Brian Barletta, the teams at Audely, Tink Media, Adonde Media, Zeitler Design, and Sounds Profitable. If you want to support the show and wear the coolest freaking merchandise ever, check out our Creature Preacher store at creaturepreacherpod.com, created by Go-To-Market, the best folks in all of merchandising land. If you want to see behind-the-scenes video and me dancing with some cats, you can follow me on Instagram at Nancy Mello Official or on TikTok at nancy.mello. Thanks for listening.